this third roundtable on critical raw materials and energy policy. I think much have been said, but we will try to go further. In a global context where energy transition and resource independence are strategic for goals for Europe, I think it is vital to understand the role of critical raw materials and energy policies as pillars of security and sustainability. And at this point, I would like to mention that this is not only about energy transition. I mean, this is a matter of industry too, because 70% of industry, of European industry, depends on reliable and undistorted access to the raw materials. And many countries control certain minerals without which we will not be able to build the infrastructure that will facilitate the energy transition. There is no doubt that this is a security issue at the European level, as this morning Fabio Costaldo pointed out, Nicolás Casares, Susana Ciccardi, they all were aligned with this issue, and I think there's Geologists have something to say here, because this is a question of resources, and there are a lot of resources yet to be discovered, and the professionals that can be, of course, in collaboration with everyone, but maybe the most important ones are the geologists, without that. Well, I would also like to introduce my co-moderator for today's session, Ferenc Madai. He is a representative of the Hungarian Geological Society at the European Federation of Geologists. He has extensive experience in geological sciences and resource management. Ferenc has played a key role in advanced sustainable practice in mining and geological exploration in Hungary. I think his expertise will be really important in this. And well, as a final point, I think as Mario Draghi pointed out in his report, The Future of European Competitiveness, to secure a sustainable and competitive future, Europe needs a robust industrial strategy rooted in sustainable energy and raw materials production. In Draghi's words, now it is vital to ensure the Act's rapid, full implementation. Well, we can begin with the session. I think we will begin with around questions for each of our speakers, focusing on their areas of expertise and on the key topics of critical raw materials and energy policy. The floor is yours, Ferenc.
So the first question, it was addressed according to Flavio, Cielo. I'm a member of the European Parliament, but I'm afraid that he is not present. Okay, so he is not present. Okay, so then, well, okay, but I think that anyway, we can ask this question, and we will see that who if somebody would answer for this. Is that it has already been mentioned that the Net Zero Industry Act, which is an important new legislative measure of the European Union, and it is focusing on renewable energy supply and the sustainability goals for the EU. And the question is that how this new Net Zero Industry Act can complement the strategy exposed in the Critical Raw Materials Act, and how these can be complementary to each other to reach the goals.
Yeah, maybe I can just address a few words. And so I'm from BEG Germany, and I think there are challenges, right? I mean, we need then these critical raw materials to push forward energy transition and have the supply chains secure and fastened. But on the other side, I think we have to address that there is lots of offshoring going on of energy-intensive industries. So what I see, at least in my country, is that the energy costs are high, and I see that also in other countries. That means that the smelting industry and so forth reduces or shuts down and offshores the whole thing somewhere else. That also happens with chemical industry and other industry, because managers, I think, have to decide either to wait what's going to happen while costs increase and the competition is worldwide and not just in the country or in Europe. So I would feel that if we as geologists wish that then the Net Zero Act drives critical raw material exploration and so forth, it could be vice versa, that maybe industry is moving faster than we can dream of.
Thank you very much for this interesting reply. Anybody else for this question? Okay, please.
Sure. I am Bianca Newman. I'm the chair of the youth group. I'm the chair of the youth group of the UNEC expert group on resource management's Jan Member group. And I mean, I can provide a little perspective on the Net Zero Industry Act, because in my job as a policy consultant, I actually just conducted a study on the resilience of the German industry. And there, the Net Zero Industry Act and the Critical Raw Materials Act really, it was really apparent how they interplayed or were interconnected, when the Critical Raw Materials Act mainly focuses on critical minerals extraction and processing, but the Net Zero Industry Act really focuses on keeping the supply chains in Europe. So the Net Zero Industry Act, so to speak, could be the second step. If you look at the German solar industry, for example, for the solar industry, it's too late. All OEMs and all suppliers left Germany, went to either the US because they had better conditions with the economical frameworks there, or went to China because China is just economically much more competitive and provided a space in which the industry could survive, which in Germany wasn't the case. What the focus of the Net Zero Industry Act is now is keeping in Europe what we still have. I think building up completely new key component supply chains will be difficult. Now it's about the survival of what we still have, which isn't a lot, but it is something that can make the European Union more resilient.
Thank you very much, Bianca. It was very interesting. You told that keeping in Europe what we still have, but it's also important to get the raw materials for which we not really have inside of Europe, and that will be an important continuation for the next question.
Yeah. I think Bianca mentioned one of the most important issues of this Critical Raw Materials Act. I mean, it's processing. I was speaking with Christina just before commencing this roundtable about that. I mean, processing is something that China and the United States, but mainly China, are doing now. We should, of course, look for national resources, but we should produce here. We shouldn't send the concentrates that our mines are producing to China, because if not, if we're doing that, that would be a China product, and we need that product here in Europe. I would like to continue with Christina. Christina Lovillo is the director of the European Platform Task Force within the DG Energy, where she leads efforts on energy policy and green transition. With extensive experience in EU energy frameworks and international energy security, she plays a key role in shaping Europe's approach to clean and secure energy sources. Christina, from DG Energy perspective, how is Europe addressing the energy transition in terms of CRM demand?
Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you for the invitation, in particular to the European Commission, DG Energy. Obviously, I will speak from the energy policy perspective and the energy transition. Before, I would like to give some strategic context on where we are in the European Union. Recently, I came from Baku, from COP29, where negotiation on climate talks continue. But we have experienced in the recent COPs, also in the one in Dubai last year, that energy transition plays a fundamental role there. I'm saying that because we all know that producing and consuming energy account for 75% of greenhouse gas emissions. So that's the reason why in the process to achieve decarbonization, energy transition plays a fundamental role. In this context, I would like also to mention that in the European Union, we plan to achieve this decarbonization basically with two core policies, that is renewables and energy efficiency. Having said that, obviously nuclear is also part of the equation, so the member states who want to produce nuclear, they are free to do it, provided that they respect all the requirement of the Euratom Treaty. But the European Union will focus and will deploy basically renewables. So this is our direction of the channel. We have a very important target, it's 42.5% by 2030. It's a target we need to achieve in renewable. Today we have 23, so still we have a long work to do and a long path to run. But this is if we focus on the European perspective. But globally, the last year in the COP28 in Dubai, all the participants, all the parties negotiating climate talks, they decided on the global commitment that is tripling renewables and doubling energy efficiency by 2030. If we consider what this means for the world, implies a significant increase on the critical energy transition minerals. Just to give you an example, if we want to triple renewables and doubling energy efficiency, we'll need to multiply by 40 the amount of lithium that we have today in the European Union. This is only lithium, but we have in particular 14 considered critical energy transition mineral. Very recently, we have the Commission on Energy, we have co-chaired a panel in United Nations on this critical energy transition mineral with South Africa, and it was a work commanded by Secretary General Antonio Guterres. And this report that I would like you to have a look at it, because considering 5 actionable recommendations and 7 principles, but I would like to summarize in 3 main points. The first one is that we need, and Paolo, you mentioned that, a robust value chain that we don't have at this stage. Secondly, we need transparency. We don't have transparency. And third, Pablo, you mentioned as well, we need to diversify the processing. I don't need to mention any country, but we all know where 80% of the processing takes place. So this will be very dangerous when we talk about dependency. I say that because we have recently suffered in the European Union the consequences of depend almost 90% of the Russian gas, and how difficult it is for the European Union to get rid of fossil fuels in the European system. When the invasion of Ukraine took place and the energy crisis started, we still imported 45% of the gas that we consume in the European Union came from Russia. Today, in 2 years only, we have reduced this amount to 18%, and we need still to get rid of this gas. It has been really painful for the European Union to be more strategic, more diversifying when it comes to energy resources. So my message here is that we cannot repeat the same mistake that we did for the gas on the critical raw materials. So we are working now, we have our CRM Act, we have our NCA as well, we have MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, with CRM producers in the world, but it's not enough. I think that Professor Draghi, Paolo, you mentioned as well, has given very clear indication in his report on how we can ensure more CRM supply in the European Union, and basically the principle that they have mentioned should somehow guide the whole process. Thank you.
So yes, it's thank you for your message, Christina. It's not only a matter, it's not only an issue of industry of energy transition, it's an issue of security, and I think it's good to reinforce the message. I think so.
Thank you. The next question would be addressed to Ellen Frankovic, who is the president of the Croatian Geological Survey, and he has been working also for the Zagreb University for a long time as a professor. And as just it was mentioned by Christina, that there should be an increase of minerals in a certain quantity. It also raises a question, what I have faced last year with this, that the European Union also thinks about that several hundreds of thousand workforce will be also, new workforce will be needed also for the implementation of the Critical Raw Materials Act. And therefore the question to Ellen is that how, having this experience in the higher education, what measures do you see that the member states should take to address the shortage of the skilled professionals in the raw material sector, also including this, expectations for the higher amount of workforce?
Thank you for the question. I'm coming from Croatia. I'm president of Croatian Geological Society, not survey.
I'm sorry.
Yes, so society is a different organization. We are volunteering, non-profit organization, and we are gathering the geoscience, geological community from 4 main institutions. So we have two faculties. One is the Faculty of Mining, Geology, Geoengineering. The other one is the science faculty, and then we have a Croatian Geological Survey and INA. INA is an oil company. These three, nowadays it's a private company. Prior it was a state-owned company. So I'm in front of them discussing here about the raw materials, and generally I'm discussing about the raw materials and and the geoenergy transition and the Fit for 55 and all of these things that we are interested in. What I wanted to say and emphasize in my addressing here, which I thank for opportunity to talk in front of you, that I'm coming from academia. I worked for academia for 10 years. I got my PhD and then went to industry, to oil industry. I work now for 10 years in oil industry and have the background from both of these different competencies that I gained during my years. The thing is that nowadays, when I'm working in industry, I'm somehow challenged by all these things regarding the funding, etc. Working for industry, you have always to take care about the economical model and about NPV, EMPV, etc. To make it more efficient, more productive, more money, to gain more money. And where do we turn on now when we haven't to think about the strategical raw materials? Before we turn to you, to funds. And unfortunately, industry is not following. And as my colleague from Germany mentioned, maybe they probably went too far, and probably we won't keep up with them. Coming from the energy industry, they have funds. And for instance, as a geologist, I prepare as a geologist also raw materials, for instance, for bauxite, minerals, etc. I actually do some exploration for them. Nowadays, they are turning how to switch the competencies. And that's related to the question. We have faculties that are producing geologists, producing miners, producing petroleum engineers, and we are not hiring anymore in the oil industry, but we are thinking how to switch their competencies to what? To geothermal, to, for instance, lithium, also very important to use the knowledge and the experience that we gained prior in working with oil and gas, to use this knowledge and to use this data, for instance, in producing lithium from the brines, from the waters in the reservoirs from which we are producing oil and gas. That's also something new for us. We are not competent enough. We are looking for chemists to help us in that department, etc. So the industry is changing, the geology, geoscience and geology is generally changing, and our all faculties are trying to adapt. In one way, they are doing it correctly. So they are doing some R&D projects together with EU funds and together with some agencies in Croatia. On the other hand, not knowing where we will go, they started opening some kind of curriculum relating, for instance, an environmental geologist. I don't know what does that mean. That means that I'm not an environmental geologist or what. So I'm also skeptical about this curriculum that they introduced. I'm an ecologist also. I want everything to be done correctly, fine, according to environmental protection laws, etc. So in general, what to say about competencies? We have them still. We have them in our industry. We need to switch somehow to some green energy industries. We are doing it in the industry level, but on the faculty levels, etc., I see that people are lost. And for instance, Survey had prior department for mineral resources, and now it's called Mineral Resources and Marine Geology, because they definitely thought that probably mining, etc., or this kind of work won't be any more of any interest of European Union. So they totally switched to another part, and now they are looking forward to go into it. And for instance, for my colleagues that work on that, they asked me, there was an act about raw materials in the May, and it's on European Parliament, and everything is set down. And now they ask me, Alan, please ask what about it? What is our state doing about that act? When we going to start? When we will get funds? It doesn't work like that, you know. So I'm skeptical about intervention of state. I'm more into industry and to gain capital and to make business, because business and capital and all of this will make it happen. When there is an economical value there, then definitely we will try it. If there is no value, then we are in problem, and hopefully this will change, and we will have big investments in that part. I must say from the another side, not from for education, but I must say from other side regarding investments. There is a good projects in Croatia. For instance, in geothermal project, a geothermal project that it's invested by European Union. That's a very good project. They are investing 40 million euros in new exploration of geothermal potential. It will end by 4 new wells. And so the state is investing a lot of money, or European money, or our own money, to, how to say, to explore the area regarding geothermal potential. And the result will be, hopefully, the well, or the value will be the geothermal potential on the well, and the society around that well will be able to connect and do some business about it. So that's a good example of intervention of European Union funds and the state part. But from my point of view, and I was on a panel 10 days ago, I mentioned to them there are geological risks. And they said, why? I said, maybe none of them will be positive. You need to have reservoir, you need to have temperature, you need to have production, and you need to have surface facility. So maybe we will throw $40 million for nothing. And you have to be aware of that. And they look at me and say, why, Alan, you are always thinking, or negatively. I say, no, that's geology, that is our risk. And, geothermal energy is there, but there are geological risks. And people are not aware of that. And that is my final conclusion about all this, is that from this morning and all this discussion is, I wanted to ask you all, we need to be more visible, we need to address Parliament, etc. Let's say, frankly, where we are. Let's look ourselves in the mirror and say where exactly we are at this moment. We are not in a good position. I'm from industry, and I know from each day I have meetings with my management, project managers, with drillers, with petroleum engineers, etc. We are always neglected. I always have to fight for the position of geologists, and I'm always right in the end, But they are business. They make business, and we are geoscience. We are only talk, as they mentioned. So, we talk, and we are, how do they say, geopoetrists. Our whole is geopoetic whole. But we are making a new effort. We are giving ideas, etc. They are only service providers. But unfortunately, in the industry, especially in Southeastern Europe, something switched, and they are more important than us. And we are having to fight for it. And this is why I'm here. Because according to all your all these projects, all these ideas that you are having of empowerment of geology, I support it. It's important, and you will have my support through my presidentship for a year from now. And that's very important, to empower geology. This is why I'm here, to empower it. I will put it on social media. I will empower young geologists to let somehow hear about us, that we exist, and that it's important that we discuss in European Parliament, etc. So I'm here for empowerment of geology and geologists, of course. So thank you for questions, and we can discuss it later on.
Okay, thank you very much, Alan. I can see, I'm agreeing with you, and I can see that, well, there's a shortage of geologists, of course. People, I can see that, yes, people who study at the faculty faculties are lost now, just don't know what to do. It's true, but it is true that national members, I'm talking about European Union national members, should present an investigation exploration program, and the deadline is 2025. I don't know with this shortage how you can do this, but there's no time, and the need for resources is really important. Well, I would like to follow this issue of the education and introduce some sustainability concepts too. And for that, I would like to introduce Matti Kinnunen. She is the secretary of the Finnish Geological Association. He has been promoting public awareness of geological science on the role of the critical raw materials in modern life, as well as in advancing industry standards for responsible mining. Matti, sustainable practices are crucial. What role do national geological associations play in promoting sustainable mining practice, improving conditions of social license, educating the public, and educating the public on the importance of critical raw materials in everyday life?
Thank you for your question. First of all, I will mention a couple of things about the Critical Raw Material Act, because there is one goal is that we should mine 10% of raw materials used in Europe, from Europe in 2030. And my question to all of us is, are we already late? Because very high call, and if you are dealing with the mining industry, you know that the process takes years to complete and wrap up the mining. It takes years.
It's true, that's true, yeah.
But what about the role of national geological associations is for suitable mining practice and so on? I don't know, because the geological associations are very different size in different parts of Europe, so I would say that at least in Finland, our work is very, very tiny at the moment, but we are more like to have courses and to education for our members, and that how, but like the more for like a common man, they don't really. We don't really tell them anything, and maybe the role for that is like for geological service and like a larger operators. So.
Thank you very much, Matti. Christoph Helias has already answered the first question, but it should be mentioned that he is the president of the German Professional Association for Geoscientists and the expert group for raw materials under the UNECE. And the question for him is that how your international, how do you view the international collaboration in the field of critical raw materials? What efforts are being made to harmonize the resources policies among the countries? And if it is still can be fitted, how the UNFC, which is a compulsory part of the reporting, to be as a strategic project under the critical raw material, and how the UNFC can be helped in this frame. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That's a big one. Yeah, first the international. I think, and it was mentioned here as well, we have to be transparent. I mean, there is no way, from my point of view, that we will supply the raw materials of the needs of Europe. I mean, we need to have international cooperation forever. And as mentioned before, we deal with risk. Right? In industry, we have the P10, P50, P90, and whatever. And then we go out, we say, there's something, and then everybody is shocked that we don't deliver what we raised in terms of expectation. But I think we have all these tools, and we just need to apply them. And I also would see that in the morning we said that we as geologists, we offer something. I would see we do it already. I mean, everybody here is doing that for decades. We have the knowledge. And either the politics take it or they leave it, and we offer it just to them. And EFG is doing a good job from my point of view, because first of all we need the quality assurance, and that is the quality assurance of ourselves. We have that Geologist thing, which is quite important in education, and I'm wondering whether we should think about to develop it even further. Because when I go to a doctor, there are different doctors, right? If I have a bladder stone, I have a doctor, and for my teeth I have a doctor. And if I have something else, I also have a doctor. For everything they have their own expertise and certification, and we should do that as well. The risk I see is, I mean, how can we collaborate if we don't do it? I mean, we need people who are able to do it, and doing means that we need companies to do it. And we are good in Europe in mining stones and producing cement and so forth, but I am not aware of big internationally operating company within the EU 27 who do exploration in Europe and outside of Europe. And strange enough, all these dirty companies are placed more or less outside the EU 27, either in the UK or in Switzerland or further away. And that has to be overcome somehow, and I think it's also in the interest of DG Energy and so forth, that we create an environment where industry can actually operate in Europe and then transfer the state of the art in mining, in greener mining, to other countries, which would be really, really welcome from the countries at least I visit. They would like to work with European companies, but there are no European companies, or it's too risky or whatever, and then it doesn't go into operation. And that is, I think, what's really important, that we always consider that there's what do we wish, what kind of papers do we produce, and what is actually happening. And there's quite a mismatch, and I think we talk about it. And I think with the Critical Raw Materials Act and so forth, although the numbers, as was mentioned, are quite ambitious, is a very good way forward, because it really defines now the way ahead. And now we have to create this environment. Whether or not we should harmonize, I really don't know. I have a colleague who is a mining law professor, and he asked me if everything is open, right, and everything is transparent, how would then the German government behave if the Chinese company jumps into Germany and wants to mine copper? And what about strategic raw materials? I mean, do we really want to share anything with everyone? And what about the objectives? We talk about green energy, which is important, but as far as I know, there are 17 sustainable development goals, not just one. It's economic growth, it's clean energy, it's water, it's food, everything is related with mining. And the last thing I would raise is there's also number 16, that is peace. Do we have a strategy in Europe that we can maintain peace, like the Americans who have a critical raw materials defense stock somewhere? Does Europe have that? Do we need that? Do we need to talk about the importance of raw materials for peace? That is what I want to leave here with you, and maybe then you pass on the other questions to you.
Well, interesting questions, definitely. I don't know if somebody from the European institutions.
Do you want to reply, Christina? Do you want
I don't have the full reply, because I think it's part of the reflection we will have to do during the future. What I can say from the European Commission side is that we have somehow put the basis for that. So we know that we need critical raw mineral for defense industry, for energy transition, and the legislation we have so far, for the Commission perspective, are a good basis to continue working on that. If we look into, I mentioned again the Professor Dai report, he mentioned specific measures for CRM. In particular, he said that we should do for CRM the same that we did for gas during the crisis, kind of mechanism of joint procurement or something. So I think that this will be the work of the next commission. We are transition from one commission to another. And if you look at the mission letter of Commissioner dealing with energy transition, dealing with industry, climate, you have very specific indications on what should be the proposal that should be proposed to the Parliament and to the Council over the next 5 years. So, but again, if you ask for what we have done so far, I think that we have the right legal basis, but maybe it's not enough, because we need to ensure sustainability, we need to ensure transparency, we need to ensure robust value chain, and we are not there yet.
Thank you. No. Please.
So, what people forget many times is that mines don't come from somewhere. You have to do the exploration work beforehand, and that is like a very risky business, because most of the time you are looking like something you cannot find, and how to convince like somebody that give me 2 million euros and I will spend it on the ground and do this and do that, and so in the long run, if we look like 50 years or 70 years beyond this point, the exploration should be started now, and then we might have a mine like 50 or 70 years, because it takes time. So at least there is need for money, and I don't know.
Yeah, definitely, and I agree, and with the exploration and exploration projects are highly important and critical. However, the strategic project doesn't support exploration. The strategic project supports geology in the sense when there is already it is on the feasibility or on the production phase. Lauri also from Estonia, from the Estonian Geological Survey, he still was not asked now. He is working with the phosphate rock deposits in Estonia, which are interesting from 2 points of view. One is that in Estonia it is also a rather debated question from the public acceptance point of view. On the other hand, the phosphate is a specific kind of critical raw materials, which is on the critical raw materials list, which is which cannot be recycled. So it is consumed by so it is dissipated by the consumption. My question is that what can be, or what is your concept or opinion about the critical raw materials like the phosphates which cannot be recycled, like metals or most of them?
Yes, thank you for that. First of all, I would make a small correction that at least partly phosphate can be recycled in a way that it can be extracted from the wastewater or like manure used in fertilizers. So there is some extent we can use it. Nevertheless, we still need mine phosphate mineral from the ground. Question is where we do it basically. In EU there is one mine in Finland that mines phosphate. And now coming to Estonia, we have a very big phosphate resources that were heavily studied during the Soviet period. And then at the late 80s, there was huge plans to do these very big mines in northeast Estonia. And these plans collided with this strong nationwide opposition. At that time, there was the environmental regulation was totally different. These mines would have resulted a huge impact on groundwater and so on. But still, almost 30, 35 years later, these kind of memories or fears have been preserved. So when during the 30 years period roughly, 2 times private companies tried to apply to study these phosphorite deposits and they were basically killed immediately. Now the Geological Survey has, let's say, at least license to study these deposits. If we ever reach to mining them is another question. But even we feel that every day that how important these kind of communication, that skills that go away from geology, are not related to the geological questions. When at the moment actually there is drilling for phosphates, and we want to get like this a bit bigger sample. In first 5 days of drilling, I think there was each day at least 1 media channel filming and making interviews like what they're doing. So this is like that interest of what's related to this phosphorite exploration is it's really huge, and this all comes to these let's say big plans 35 years ago. So I think this can be to expand to all different geological deposits, but geology is always very important, but I would say as important is to really communicate the locals and make them feel and see how they can profit if this will reach to somewhere. That this profit or money don't go to the investors, don't go to the government, and then it's kind of spread it away, and they really locally don't feel that we have new kindergarten, we have new pool, better roads, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For one comment that you have mentioned, 35 years of environmental legacy of a certain situation in Estonia. I also remember that for Hungary, unfortunately, there were 2 serious this mining accidents. One was the Myanmar case in 2000, in January 2000, 24 years ago. The other was the Aika accident in 2010, and my feeling is that these legacies are still working, also which acts negatively to the promotion of mining projects. And if we see that there are plans within the Raw Materials Act up to 2030, which is just 6 years from now, then having these long-term, long-lasting, these negative legacies, it really can make some problem in the implementation.
Interesting points in communication with the stakeholders, transparency, and profit for communities. Very important things. Well, I would like to ask Bianca. She already answered one question, but I would like to introduce her a little bit. She's the chair of the UNEC Resource Management Young Members Group, and with a strong background in resource management and sustainability development. She advocates for youth participation participation in advancing global standards and policies for critical raw materials. The question is, Bianca, as chair of the UNSC, how can young professionals contribute to fostering innovation and sustainability in the CRM sector?
Sure, thank you for the question. I think one thing that is probably a traditional route into critical raw materials is the academic path, going to university and studying geology, of course, and that will always remain important. However, as we already heard from Christina, renewable energy technologies and renewable energy supply is expected to be tripled in the next decade, and that leads to a projected supply in people, or to a projected demand in people with energy transition skills that is not met by the supply that we can give. So we have twice as many jobs that we need to be filled than we have. So at the same time, when we have geology programs declining, we need to have creative and interdisciplinary approaches to getting more people engaged. So I would probably turn the question around and ask, what can geologists and other experts in the field do to enable youth more? And for that, I could give some insights on a study that we conducted a couple of months ago. It was a multi-perspective study that aimed at examining how youth engages in the critical raw material space across different sectors. And there we found out that youth is contributing from very different perspectives, such as entrepreneurs working on responsible mining projects and startups, academics pursuing cross-disciplinary research in the field, researching alternative technologies that reduce dependencies from third countries, like permanent magnets without rare earth elements. We also had a lot of youth from governments and international organizations driving policies in the field to make it more sustainable, and we also had a lot of activists in this field addressing environmental and social injustices in the field of mining, which seems to be a really key factor that motivates youth these days. They are really motivated by this interconnectedness of climate change, climate justice, and the role that mining will play in a just energy transition. We also identified some key drivers of success and enablers for the youth, which were interdisciplinary platforms like EIT Raw Materials, or also RMIMG, so the Resource Management Young Member Group, in which people with very different backgrounds, geology, policy, engineers, could come together and really look at the critical mineral challenges from different perspectives. Another key driver that we identified was funding and mentorship to support impactful projects, and also opportunities to work with experienced professionals. For example, RMIMG is completely integrated within the UNEC Expert Group on Resource Management, which means that we have members working in the different working groups, working inter and intra-generationally, and we experienced that a lot of youth really profited from that in terms of skills they acquired within a very short amount of time, and also the added value that it had for their careers. Some of the biggest challenges that we identified were also steep hierarchies, undervalued youth voices, and limited financial resources. Youth often has lots of time, lots of innovation, lots of motivation and energy, but by nature, we don't have a 20-year career behind us that could fund all of our endeavors and all of our projects. So that is also one of the crucial things that has helped youth to engage more in this space. So the solutions for that will probably be addressing these challenges, particularly the hierarchies and financial barriers, and also fostering mentorship, fostering collaboration, interdisciplinarity, and all the things that were mentioned today to really unlock this potential of young professionals from different disciplines. I myself, I have a background in political science, I have a background in economics, but still I've worked with critical minerals companies and with the critical minerals industry since before my studies, because I'm this passionate about climate action and climate change, and because coming from a small mining village, this interconnectedness of mining and climate action has always been present in my life. But by going to conferences like COP or other conferences, Maureen told us about, I don't know who it was, people from the space that should know about the role of mining, they didn't know it. And just a quick remark here, I don't know how short we are in time, but at COP, I also had a similar story to the one that Maureen told earlier. I'm not going to mention any names, but I had the opportunity to talk to the head of an intergovernmental organization, a really big intergovernmental organization that focuses on renewable energies. And while I had the opportunity to speak to him, I asked him how he thinks about putting critical minerals on the agenda. And I somewhat expected an answer from him along the lines of, oh, it's important. You know, I expected something along the lines of what this room has been talking about for years. However, his answer really surprised me, and I would be interested in what you think of it. Remember, this is the head of a major intergovernmental organization focusing on renewable energies. He said, he basically shrugged me off saying, oh, critical minerals are not going to be a problem, they're not going to be a bottleneck at all, we're not putting it on the agenda, because technologies will adapt to whatever critical minerals we have or we don't have, so it's not really going to be important, which left me speechless. And unfortunately, he left after that conversation. He walked away and just left me speechless. So I'd be interested in your perspective also on it. Have I been focusing on the wrong field for my career, or where's the miscommunication?
Thank you very much, Bianca. It was very interesting. Also, today I had an idea in my mind that with the critical raw materials, we would like to solve an issue to support the raw materials need for Europe. Yeah, everybody knows it. But with the change of the behavior, perhaps for the next generation, perhaps these kind of needs will be not as we think, or as it is as it is currently. So that might be an answer for this, or.
What do you mean by change in behavior?
Well, okay, instead of buying new cars, car sharing, let's say.
While I strongly support individual responsible choices, I unfortunately don't believe in. I don't believe that the upcoming generations have enough willpower or power in general to actively steer the economy into this direction. I think that would be a role that policymakers have, to create policy frameworks that actually encourage, incentivize, and nudge for these more responsible policies. Actually, RMIMG, so our group, we recently published a paper in which we talked about how demand-side policies can actually tackle this problem by nudging people into more responsible behavior. But unfortunately, although it would be nice if the next generation had this responsible behavior printed into their brains, I don't think that would be something that makes a big difference. So I do see the responsibility, and I hope that policymakers also tackle this problem from a policy approach, from a demand-side policy approach.
Okay, considering that we have less than 10 minutes left, I think we can open questions to the audience. Victor, you're waiting for this moment.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I was precisely waiting for this moment because I have. Yes, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Victor Correia. I represent here the International Raw Materials Observatory. And as it was mentioned in the discussion, we might have a problem here, not necessarily with raw materials deposits, because we have them in Europe, but we have a problem with extracting the minerals and also with processing. And when it goes to processing, what industry says, it's the cost of the energy. So the question is to Mrs. Lobillo, because I believe you mentioned that the focus of the European Commission has been on renewable energy and energy efficiency, but that does not solve the problem of the energy costs. So I wonder, are we going to jump into nuclear power sooner or later? Because I don't see any other option in the near future. Thank you.
Yes, maybe I need to clarify. What I have said is that in the European Union, how we want to decarbonize our economy, somehow I mentioned the direction of the travel is clear. So we don't produce fossil fuels, and we have targets for renewables and target for energy efficiency. If we look at how our energy mix will look like in 2050, we'll have 80% of electrification, and around 85% of the electrification will come from renewable. Still will be a percentage of nuclear energy. Today is 10 to 12, and this percentage of nuclear energy will continue by 2050. Nuclear energy does not produce emissions, so it's clean energy. And as European Commission, we are completely neutral, so we don't say member state what kind of energy they have to produce. We have a target at European Union level on renewable, but we don't have any target on other kind of energy. But again, today in the European Union, there are 11 member states who have plans to develop nuclear energy over the next 20 years. And if they develop nuclear energy respecting the requirement of the Euratom Treaty, everything is fine. So this is the role of the Commission. If you ask whether the policy in the Commission should be a different one, well, it's not the policy of the Commission, it's the policy that the Member States and the Parliament have all agreed in negotiations. So we have our legislation ready for 2030. We'll have also to set some milestone for 2040 and 2050, but we have to do it bearing in mind two main principles. The first one is to preserve competitiveness of European industry, and secondly, also to ensure affordable prices to consumers. And you're right, the problem of prices is not only renewables of energy efficiency. The problem of very high prices on energy during the crisis was the price of gas and our dependency, because today we have reformed our market design. Gas has a less prominent role than before, but still has a role to play in the market. So we are in a process where we plan to have more penetration of renewables in the market, to have cheaper prices of renewable energy. That has been the case during the past 10 years, but this is a process. So it's a process that we have to achieve. Each source of energy, you look nuclear, renewables, we need also to compare capex cost. So, but again, we are in a process to make prices more affordable to industry and to consumers, but this takes time. In particular, bearing in mind that so far we are net importer of energy. So 90% of the gas that we consume in the European Union is imported. So this shows also the vulnerability that we have. So if we go to a system where we are able to produce more of the electricity that we consume, we'll be in a safest way. So that's what we are working in the European Union, and we have seen also a significant reduction of prices. There is a figure that they always like to give. During the crisis, the price of gas skyrocketed to 300 euro megawatt hour. Today is 40. So we have somehow overcome the crisis, but prices of energy in the European Union continue to be 2 and 3 times higher than in US and China, and this is true. So we need to continue working.
Yes. My name is Guy Franceschi. I'm from the Belgian-Luxembourg Association of Geologists. I hear from the panel, and I thank you for them, a lot of initiatives, ideas, issues, which are very interesting. But what I'm missing from Europe is a realistic, practical roadmap how to achieve the objectives. It's all scattered actions and initiatives, but not a logic in it. As a mineral exploration geologist, I would like to see, like Mr. Hilgersen, the financing, the investment climate, how to be built up. We don't have that here in Europe. There's in the UK, if I which shows that they're not in Europe, in the 27, but we don't have that. I would like to have realistic timelines in the sense of some politicians say that by 2030 we should have this and that. But do you know that it takes at least 10 years to develop a mine once you found a deposit, and we are far from discovering the deposit. So this is something that strikes me in all the levels, how to achieve this realistically, come to an end, and with a real timeline say, look, this is what we want by 2030, by 2035, this is where we want to stand. This is my point. Thank you.
I don't know if, yeah, it's a good question, and I agree with you, it's true. It seems that this strategic projects is a fast lane to start with some of the, at least the most interesting mining projects in Europe. But yes, it's a good point. There are so many things, but there's not a roadmap. Yeah, for sure, of course.
And I feel that here comes the role of EFG. What is EFG? I mean, I knew, my colleague here on the left side also knew what is the responsibility we take as EFG, and I think that should also be discussed. Do we follow the political mainstream, or do we, based on our expertise, tell and share what is realistic and what is not? That the politicians have a guideline, which they may use or may not use.
Thank you very much. Probably this is a very nice summary of why we are here today in the European Parliament, and why the European Federation of Geologists should have tell this voice about these issues. In my opinion, that we have covered a lot of issues. We didn't solve it, of course, it was a nice and interesting summary of the issues, and it seems that the question with the topic for this session, it needs a lot of further discussions and further solutions.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other question. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, just a final remark I have, not just about this roundtable, but about today, and I think not one today from EFG. But the question has been always, how can we be more convincing towards the European Commission, that geology is important. And it comes always to my mind when we discuss this, that when the EU built this building we are inside here, afterwards they had some stability issues. And so it comes to my mind immediately, you see how geology is important. We would have done a proper work in terms of geotechnical assessment. Maybe we wouldn't have such a stability problem, which could lead quite quickly to huge costs. So that's why geology is important.
Absolutely, agree. Yeah.
Yes, a question. I think it could be interesting to think in the possibility that the state, well, in this case, European Commission, do investment in the exploration, because we don't know really what we want, what we have, sorry. So I think it's the best, the most important point, the first point is to know what we have. And then we could give to private companies the exploitation of the resources. But in Spain, I think in many cases the problem is that when the people see that the machines from some private company are coming just to drill or do something, they consider that that's not correct. And we don't know what we have. That's, I think, is the first point. No? How can statements can be the investment, can do the investments for the first stage, the exploration? No? Is it?
Well, it's a good point too. Yeah. It seems that with the strategic projects again, there's a financial way to, yeah, but this is something new, and we should see how it works. What it's true, and I'm really committed and I'm really worried too about this, I mentioned a few minutes ago, this issue with the national exploration programs. It's not well defined, but I think it's essential, because as you said, Nieves, we have a lack of investigation, absolutely. Maybe, I can see that maybe countries from the north of Europe, their job, but not countries from the southern Europe. I mean, I can see Spain, and Spain has this important lack of investigation, and it should be solved. And yeah, there was another question.
Martin Dushy from Czech Republic, Czech Association of Geology. But for example, in our country, it's well known what is underground. Not known for 100%, but it's well known. But really, we have a problem with the mining, with the processing, as mentioned my colleague here, because we are talking about the resources, but we have more problem with reserves. And in a couple of years, maybe the list of critical materials will be much longer. There will be maybe, I'm from aggregates industry, it will be building stone, there will be cement raw material, coal line, and this. So please do something that this list won't be longer, because why we have this critical material? Because we had to start 25 years ago. Those 10 years for new quarry it's nonsense. It takes 25 years. Yeah? So, thank you.
Thank you. Marie?
So earlier today we had, EFG had gotten some advice with respect to how to continue to be influential, right? How to come out of this event and potentially engage. We also produced a manifesto, so you all have a copy. So my question to you is in considering that manifesto and all of the conversation that has been had today, what advice would you have for EFG in prioritizing the next 3 or 4 topics that we need to engage in? Because we've talked about a lot of different topics, a lot of different angles. So what advice do you have for EFG leadership in moving us forward in this venue?
Yeah.
Short answers for all of the panelists.
My short answer would probably be, think about implementing a youth group that really provides a space for youth to onboard the geoscience space, to find mentorship, to find opportunities that further motivate them to continue to be engaged in the space. I've actually at COP, I encountered a group of energy experts that are now, they specifically asked me if EFG has a youth group because I want to create a network, and they really need this contact to the European geologists. And I had to tell them no. So that would be my recommendation probably.
Maybe my recommendation would be apparently very simple, but I think it is not, is that maybe we need to enhance cooperation at institutional level. Where I see sometimes that we don't have the same level of information when it comes to the action we have. I think that we all agree on the diagnosis, but we don't have the same level of information or the same level of the action that should be priority. So this is, for me, it could look very simple, but I think that we should start by this enhanced cooperation at institutional level and also stakeholders. So we include all the geologists, of course, but we need also the industry that could invest. We need also to prioritize where the public investment should go in the CRM. And for that, we need also consensus, because you know how these decisions, we cannot forget that CRM is, I would say, a very new topic. still new topic. Should not be so new, but it's new. So I think that we need to intensify this cooperation and to agree on what should be the priorities.
So I will steal the idea from the audience. So we should have like a realistic roadmap for CRMs. And we should tell the politicians and people who are in charge that is this, it looks nice, but is it realistic?
Well, I think we address points like raw materials, energy, soil / environment, and I mean EFG should have pinpoint these keywords and then come up with our competence, right? Because I don't expect people here to know all the details. We know, and that is why we are here, to offer our know-how. And that is what I think EFG is good for, but we should really also define where is then the end of EFG and where does politics start. I wouldn't recommend EFG to be too political. Whether nuclear or not, I don't care, I'm a geologist. Whether fracking or not, I don't care, I'm a geologist. We provide the resources that people have good life, we protect the environment, and that's it. That would be my recommendation.
This is not recommendation, but the idea is something similar that Martti mentioned, and it came also from the audience that a lot of targets, they really seem very ambitious and not to say unrealistic in some points. There is a very good report from the Finnish Geological Survey, Michaud, yes, looking on the one hand, what are our goals when how much electric cars we need, how much metals we need, and then on the other hand, it looks how many deposits are there known, how many deposits are inactive, and how much material we can get there. And there is like huge shifts in between them in these numbers. And as told several times by many people here today, opening mine is not like that. And often in Europe there are disputes in courtroom that takes on top of the exploration several years. There is a bad example in Estonia where just relatively small limestone quarry has been negotiating in the courts past 20 years. Geology-wise, everything is clear, but if and how this area is suitable for mining, this has been under discussion for roughly 20 years. So again, opening a mine in Europe is not an easy task, and when we have these very ambitious targets, we really should have also at least a pathway how we can achieve this. Thank you.
Yes, from my point of view, I just had a thought about it. What can I say about where we could go? Where should your EFG go? I'm thinking about industry. Let's go towards industry. Who is taking the risks of exploration? Not us, as colleague said also, that we are geologists. I don't want to go into politics. I don't want to go into service compensation. I know geology, and we all know geology. We are definitely certain in that. So who is taking risks? Mostly industry. So we should talk to them anymore. They are investing a lot of money in our projects. We live with the, failed projects. We are used to that. So risks is something that it's our everyday job, and we should more link with the major players in raw materials, in oil and gas industry, in electric power plants, etc. They have to know about geology and what are we and what we can offer. So we should put our competencies, our careers at stake and say we know, and there will be changes after our exploration. and that's not easy. You have to live with it. You know, what if all these acts from European Union, Fit for 55, Act of Raw Materials, if they don't work, what will happen in 2030? Who is going to be responsible? Us? No. So there should be responsibility also, and responsibility comes from the investors, and I think EFG should talk more to investors, and that's my vision. Okay, thank you.
Rudy,
Last one.
maybe last point, I hope not to mess everything that you said until now. But I was thinking that in this really interesting panel, we didn't touch base so much about recycling. Recycling is one of the pillars of the Critical Raw Materials Act. And I'm thinking that, as you know, I mean, in Europe it's not full of potential, sources of mines, and new areas that we can open, and you discuss about that so far. So, and also they're saying that the landfills are the new mines of critical raw materials, right? So why we are not so, keen to emphasize this, one of the pillars of these 4 pillars of the Critical Mineral Act, which is something that we should consider in Europe, since that we are not so full of critical raw materials by nature.
Thank you. And just if I may also add something to the question of Marine. I am actually from the higher education, from one of the Hungarian universities, and I'm the program leader of one program, which is the Team Rex. It's a joint master program for mineral exploration, and the EFG is part of the Team Rex. And my answer from that point of view is the education. And those students who are participating in this program, they have a compulsory course, which is practically or mostly the EFG mentoring program, where the EFG actively participates in this. I don't really think that any other European master program has such an incentive. We have it, and I would be also rather interested in what will be the outcome from this when the students are taking part in this important and valuable program, which is the EFG mentoring. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much to all panelists. I think we can be talking for hours about all of these topics, but I think it's time to say goodbye. And, well, thank you very much to all of you, and so we're finished. Okay.